are charged 250,000 Uganda shillings for testing, while suspected cases are quarantined at a minimum of $100 US, and we think this is very expensive for ordinary Ugandans. Meanwhile, as you may be aware, the National Drug Authority approved the sale of Covidex, a local herbal medicine for supportive treatment in the management of viral infections. However, it is very crucial that the Ugandan government moves in to regulate the manufacture and entire supply chain of the product in order to guarantee quality and safety. We have noted that the approval came with an increase in demand for Covidex in Uganda and neighboring countries, and led to a 10-fold increase in the cost of the product. By Wednesday, the product was sold for as high as 80,000 shillings from a cost of 5,000 shillings. This is unacceptable, a clear indicator that in the absence of regulation and other safety measures, unscrupulous and profit-oriented individuals will take advantage of desperate Ugandans. In conclusion, we as the alternative government, we ask the Speaker of Parliament to recall the House to debate the government measures and the financial allocations. God bless you. Kakati basebo ne banyabo bannamawulire. Ffe nga ab'oludda oluvuganya gavumenti mu Parliament tugoberera ensonga zonna ezikwatagana ekirwadde kino ekya COVID-19. Era twalabye nga gavumenti eyisiza enteekateeka enkola y'okusamu enkola programu y'okuwa abantu ensimbi zibayambeko mu nnaku zino eza lockdown. Era nga tukyayiseemu minisita avunaanyizibwa ku kikula ky'abantu nga kigenda kutwala ensimbi ezirengukadde mu buwumbi 54. Kati minisita avunaanyizibwa ku by'ensimbi agamba nti ssente zino bagenda kuzijja mu kukendeezaako, bagenda kulaba mu mbalirira eya 2021-2022 basobole okufunawo we bajja ssente zino zisobole okuweebwa abantu abeetaavu. Byonna ebigenda maaso bitulaga nti gavumenti ya NRM terina nkola eyeetengeredde okwaŋŋanga embeera ekika kino. Ate nga byonna ebigenda mu maaso tetugamba nti bimenya mateeka, kuba tewali ngeri yonna aba executive engeri gye bayinza okutandika okukola omulimu gwa Parliament nga okukola embalirira, okutematema ssente n'okuzigaba. Y'ensonga lwaki tulowooza nti ffe ng'abakiise b'abantu kitukakatako okukubaganya ebirowoozo ku biki ebiriwo n'obisalira amagezi nga tuli wamu. Ensimbi ezoogerwako mu nteekateeka zino emitwalo 10 bw'ozitunuulira tezisobola kumala bantu aba famire emu mu nnaku 42. N'ekirala, ebitundu ebyogeddwako ebibuga nga Kampala n'ebibuga ebirala oba ne municipalities si bye byokka ebikoseddwa. Obulwadde bwa COVID ne lockdown bukosezza ebitundu ebisinga obungi naddala eby'ebibuga. Singa mba nkuwadde kyakulabirako ng'emityana, bw'ogamba nti owaddeko municipality yokka nga Busunju Town Council nayo kibuga, nga Zigoti nako kabuga, ng'era mulimu abantu abakoseddwa, kitegeeza nti enkola eno erina okukyusibwamu. Naye si ekyo kyokka, n'emitwalo 10 egyo ffe tuteesa nti gikubisibwemu emirundi 2 abantu basobole okufuna ensimbi eziyinza okuyambayamba kubanga era tezimala. Ekintu ekyaki tugamba nti abakulembeze abalonde okutandika ddala ku babaka ba Parliament okutuuka ku balonde ku mitendera egy'enjawulo balina okuteekebwa kussa mu nkola bino olw'ensonga nti bwe basobola okumanya abantu obulungi ne babategeera nti ono yeetaaga okuwa ssente n'okulondoola nti ssente zituuse. Kubanga singa babirekera abalala bayinza okuba tebamanyi bulungi bantu abo, naye okulondoola kuno kijja natuyambako okulwanyisa obukenyuzi obuyinza okubaawo mu nteekateeka eyo. Era twagala tuzze tukisaba luli nti gavumenti etulage ensaasaanya ey'ensimbi ezaafulumizibwa mu muggalo ogwasooka. Ensimbi zaakuŋŋaanyizibwa, emmere yakuŋŋaanyizibwa, emmotoka zaakuŋŋaanyizibwa. Twagala tulabe essente ezo n'ebintu ebyo byakozesebwa bitya nga na bino tebinnaba kugenda, kubanga wali tetulina nsaasaanya ate katugenda kusaasaanya ndala ssente. Twagala n'okumanya kubanga gavumenti enteekateeka gye yanjudde teyabaddemu ebintu ebisinga okuba eby'omugaso mu kiseera kino abasawo okwongera ku muwendo gw'abasawo abayinza okuyamba ku bantu baffe obbajjanjaba. Emabegako abasawo babadde bagamba bagenda kwekalakaasa, bagenda kussa wansi ebikola nga bagamba tebalina bibayambako PPEs nga bagenda okujjanjaba abalwadde ba COVID. Twagala tutegeere zaguliddwa meka, zituuka ddi, ye abaffe ebitanda ebyogerwako ebya HDU oba ICU zo ssente ziri luddawa, byagulwa, twayongerako bimeka okuva lwe twakyogerako. Mu mbeera y'emu waliwo abantu abatayogeddwako, abantu abakola bizinesi bangi balina loan, abantu b'amasomero, abantu abali mu byemizannyo, abantu abali mu katemba, abantu bangi nnyo tebayogeddwako. Abavubuka mu kategori yaabwe ng'abavubuka nabo tebayogeddwako. Twagala tutegeere bo bagenda kuyambibwa batya mu nteekateeka ya gavumenti. Era twafunye n'amawulire nti ku kisaawe Entebbe Munnayuganda ng'akomawo okukebera obulwadde bwa COVID osasula emitwalo ekitono nnyo emitwalo 25. Kaakati azuuliddwa nti oba obuyina okuteeka mu quarantine osasula $100 ez'Amerika ze siringi za wano ndowooza nga$37,000 emitwalo 37 buli lunaku nga Munnayuganda tasobola ssente ezo. Waliwo omuntu obadde oli mu kiyumba mu nsi y'Abawarabu okomyewo olumu tolina yadde 10 oli agamba kusasula emitwalo 37. Kiba tekisoboka. Tulowooza ekintu ekyo kya bubbi, kya bukenuzi, kya bukumpanya. Ensonga endala, National Drug Authority yakkiriza okukozesa eddagala eryo erya Covidex okuyambako mu kujjanjaba obulwadde obuleetebwa obuwuka bwa virus. Naye kyetwalabye nti okuva bwe baalikkiriza okutuusa olunaku lwajjo eddagala lyeyongedde nnyo ebbeeyi nti baali balitunda 5,000 zokka, naye jjo bwagenze okuziba ng'abantu abamu batunda emitwalo 3, abalala batunda emitwalo 5, abalala batunda emitwalo 8 kadde ne 10. Ne tulaba nti waliwo omuwaatwa. Ekisooka ogw'okubba bannayuganda, ekyokubiri abantu abayaayayayi bayinza okubuukira enteekateeka eno ne bacukula eddagala eryo era ne kikosa obulamu bw'abantu. N'olwekyo gavumenti yeetaaga okufaayo ennyo ku nkozesa y'eddagala eryo n'engeri gye litundibwamu. Okusinga byonna nga mmaliriza, ffe ng'aboludda oluvuganya tusaba sipiika wa paalamenti ayite paalamenti etuule ekubaganye ebirowoozo ku nsonga zino zonna, ebeeko ebiteeso byeyisa kabibeere bya nsimbi kubanga paalamenti erina obuvunaanyizibwa obwo. Kakati the other members of parliament, actually all of them here are members of the shadow cabinet. We will have Honorable Nantongo Fortunate, who is the Minister for Gender.
In Uganda, I'm Nantongo Fortunate, the woman representative of Chatila District and the Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development in the opposition government. The Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development, Honorable Betty Among, released a statement indicating the government relief that is going to be given to Ugandans in urban areas during this lockdown. As the opposition government, we have areas of critique that we have taken notice of, especially the relief aid being given to only persons, vulnerable persons in the urban areas. We are saying the lockdown COVID-19 has affected each and every person worldwide. There are so many people in rural areas who are affected by the lockdown. The National Population and Housing Census indicates that 27% of the households are in urban areas. However, the remaining 73% is in the rural areas. This indicates that there are so many people in the rural areas that are not going to receive the relief aid that is needed. We have groups of people in the rural areas. They are border men, driving borders. These people are living on daily income. In the rural areas, we have taxi drivers, we have conductors, we have vendors. All these people that are going to receive the aid in the urban areas are also there in the rural areas. They are suffering, they live on daily income and they can no longer earn. We have a sector of people, the elderly, who are under my docket. The elderly, our grandmothers, grandfathers in the village are being taken care of by these border grandchildren. They are being taken care of by their grandchildren who are earning daily income. They can no longer receive the help they get from their grandchildren because they are not under the docket receiving the 100,000. We are talking of the women. They are still there in the villages, vendors. They are not receiving this relief aid. They are also being affected by the lockdown. The Minister, Betty Among, talked of elderly. She talked of these groups still receiving the usual government aid. However, we noticed that the elderly, our grandmothers and grandfathers, last received the 150,000 last year when we were in elections. They have not gotten this aid. There is a big gap in the aid that is being given, whereby some of our vulnerable people are being left out. They are not catered for in the rural areas. The criteria that is being used to determine who is vulnerable, we do not understand it. You are talking of using records by the city authorities. Most of these people are not registered. You cannot tell me that you've registered a vendor. You cannot tell me that you've registered a woman who sells food in the taxi park. Most of these businesses are self-made. They come up each day. That means they're not registered. How are you going to trace these people in the villages? We should notice that when the announcement of the lockdown, most of the people in the urban areas rushed to the villages. They went back to the villages. But you're looking at a small sector that happened to stay in the towns. You have ignored the big number of vulnerable people that rushed back in the village because they had nowhere to stay in the towns. The issue of identification of the vulnerable people. You have talked of using national identity numbers. You've talked of telephone numbers. I have my grandmother in the village who has no telephone. How are you going to help these people that have no telephone numbers? How are you going to make sure that this 100,000 reaches to those people? You have talked of national identification numbers, and whereby a person who has no NIN, that is a national identification number, is not going to receive this aid. You are talking of sending this for the first register. The process of obtaining a NIN these days takes up to 3 months, but we are in the 42 days. The person needs the relief in these 42 days. How are you going to help that person who has no telephone number, who has no NIN, but they are vulnerable and they need the relief aid in this time? We are talking of the criteria being used needs to be advised. That's why as the opposition government, we are saying let us recall Parliament. We have so many ideas as Parliament that we need to discuss to see that the relief aid reaches all the people. The business community has greatly been affected by this lockdown. Since the previous lockdown, most businesses haven't yet come back. People were laid off. Even the people you think are being employed, they do not receive the salary as they used to. These are also vulnerable. Parliament, the 10th Parliament, passed the National Social Security Fund Bill, and it was sent to the President for assent. It hasn't yet been assented to. We are looking at midterm benefits. People have saved their money in NSSF. They need some of their money that they have saved to help them during this lockdown. But the President is sitting on the bill. The President has refused to assent to the bill. These are also vulnerable people. They need the money to help them. We are talking of the invalidity benefit. This is provided for under the NSSF Act. the invalidity benefit being given to a patient of COVID-19 in the hospital. But the process that you have stipulated, whereby your doctors are the ones to determine that this person is really sick. We all know that COVID-19 can just kill you in a day, in 2 days. So the bureaucracy that has been put for such a patient to receive the invalidity benefit is too long. It can take their life, and hospitals are so expensive. You can just be cut off of oxygen because you cannot afford. Yet in the long run, even if you die, you have to pay. So, in conclusion, we are requesting the President, so that you can cater of all these people, please assent to the NSSF bill. Because our people, the employers, the employees, need this money because they have saved for it, is their money, and also come up with measures that can help the entire country that has been affected by the lockdown to benefit from the government, because they have been paying daily taxes and now they need the government to give back to them. Thank you. Lelo oludda oluwawula gavumenti nga Zenatongo Fortunate Rose, Minister w'ebyokulya y'abantu, tuzze okulambika ku nsonga y'okuyamba abantu baffe. Gavumenti gyevuddeyo nayo okuyamba abantu mweno lockdown enaku 42. Gavumenti eleese okuyamba abantu abali mu bibuga, naye basulidde nnyo abantu abali mu byalo. Mu byalo eyo tulina bajjajja, tulina abakyala. Bajjajja mwateekawo omutendera ogubayamba nga mubawo emitwalo 15. Ezo ssente baasemba ozifuna mwaka guwedde nga tuli mu kalulu. Abali abayamba be bazzukulu, abazzukulu abavuga booda, be bazzukulu baabwe abatunda mu butale, be bazzukulu baabwe mugambye okuyamba mu bibuga, naye ate bazzukulu baabwe babeera mu byalo. Bo temubafuddeeko kulaba nti bano bajjajja bagenda kubeerawo batya mu zino ennaku 42. Abakozi emirimu egisinga gyafa okuva omuggalo ogw'omwaka oguwedde. Abakozi temubatunuulidde, abatakyafuna musaala byonna gye bali, nabo beetaaga obuyambi. Tulina NSSF bill, palamenti yagiyisa ne bagiweereza wa pulezidenti to assent, naye pulezidenti agituulidde. Eno biiru egenda kuyamba abakozi baffe okufuna ku ssente zaabwe wadde tebanaweza myaka 55, nga bawezezza emyaka 45 ateesa ssente z'okumala emyaka 10 asobola okufuna ku ssente ne zimuyamba mbuno obudde obuzibu. Naye pulezidenti biiru agituulidde. Ssebo pulezidenti w'eggwanga, tukusaba weekube mutima, funa biiru eno ogisayinge, abantu baffe bafune ku ssente zaabwe zibayambe mu buno obudde obuzibu, bw'ogattako n'okwongera ku ssente zewagambye emitwalo 10 kubanga nazo tezimala. Mwebale nnyo, mwebale nnyo.
My name is Chiaga Hilary Innocent, the Minister for Arts and Culture. We are here to add a voice and advise the government, especially on the discriminative approach that is being employed in regards to support to the nationals. There are sectors that have not yet resurrected from the previous lockdown. A sector like education, where we have private teachers who earn nothing from the government but from their bosses who own schools. Our officers have been contacted by these private teachers that the government has not taken an effort to see that the private teachers are catered for in every program that comes up to facilitate people who are in the lockdown. So as the government, we are advising the NRM government that the private teachers need immediate attention and they need to be incorporated in this program so that their works can go on as other nationals. As the Minister for Arts and Culture, the entertainment industry is one of the industries that have been in lockdown since the previous one. These people have families, but it's very challenging that whoever has been helped or supported is actually not under the beneficiary status that the government is talking about. The industry is full of mafias. Only the people who can approach the government, I mean the State House, are the ones benefiting from the funds artists must utilize. So as the Minister for Arts and Culture, I'm advising government not to personalize government funds to those people who can get approach, who can get access to the State House. Artists are complaining they don't get their funds because they cannot approach the right people. Mu Luganda, tuli wano okuteeka eddoboozi lyaffe okuwabula gavumenti ng'oludda oluwabuzi. Waliwo sectors nyingi ezitazuukiranga okuva mu lockdown eyaggwa. Ng'emu ku zo be basomesa, naddala abakolera mu private schools. Abasomesa abo bafuna ekyokulya nga baboosi baabwe bannannyini masomero bafunye ssente. Ng'ewange Empigi tulina abasomesa nga 6 aba private, naye abasomesa abo bonna since the previous lockdown bali eyo banoonya ki kye bazzaako, naye buli programu ejja gavumenti ebateekamu ng'ate bakola omulimu munene nnyo okusomesa abaana baffe. So ba private teachers tukuba omulanga gavumenti obateekemu approach eno bagifunemu. Ekyokubiri, nga Minister wa Arts ne Culture, ndi wano okwogerera ba artist abali eyo. Gavumenti eno atatuuka mu State House tafuna access ku kirungi kyalina kufuna mu gavumenti eno. Si buli artist nti agenda kujja mu State House, naye abo abatuuka mu State House bakozesezza omukisa okutwala ssente z'abaana abalina okuyambibwa mu lockdown. Ba artist bali bubi ate nga baprotectinga image y'eggwanga lino n'okuba nti bawa identity eggwanga lino. So nsaba gavumenti ogoberere ebibiina ebiri authentic ebituufu ebyaba artist, tubeere nga tukozesa ebibiina ebyo okutuuka ku artist oyo wa wansi. Mwebale nnyo, mwebale.
My name is Yefra, the Minister for the Youth and Children Affairs in the Shadow Cabinet. I've come to add a voice to the issues that have been said by the Cabinet members about the relief that's going to be sent to the nationals during this lockdown. As the youth, we make the largest proportion of this country's population. We are challenged by a number of issues, unemployment being the major. We used to ride border borders, we used to work in tax parks, we used to do air dressing, and all these sectors were affected or they were locked down when they imposed lockdown to the whole country. We are facing a challenge of how we can live with the responsibilities we have from our families, from our relatives, and other things that require finance or require money to sustain. The relief money that is to be given is said to be given to people only having national IDs. But if you look into the registration, many of the youths are not yet registered and they lack national IDs. This does not mean that many of the youth are well off, but we still fall under the vulnerables, and we need care and support from the government. We therefore call for a reform of the way they are going to distribute this relief, to see that this relief goes to everyone and to every region of the country. We also call for Parliament to sit and suspend some of the taxes that have been imposed on us. Ugandans, for example, the internet tax that is starting today. Many of the youth are in their adolescent stage and they are below the age of 24. They have been embraced with technology and they have been taking their time to learn and to appreciate the world through internet. They are facing a lot of challenges, and internet has helped us to solve the problems of drug abuse and other criminalities. Right now, we don't know what they're going to resort to if they find the expenses of data or internet bundles not in their affordable reach. We therefore call for a sitting from the Parliament. We call the Speaker to ask Parliament to suspend these taxes for the meantime as the country is going through this difficult time. Ndakuda mu Uganda katono. Erinnya nze Kabuye Frank, omubaka Kiikirya Kasanda South, minisita abavubuka n'abaana mu Parliament ey'e11 mu kibiina mu luwayi olwabula gavumenti. Twafunye batwongera obubaka kw'obwo obwogeddwa ku nsonga oba ku buyambi obugenda okuva eri gavumenti okuyambako abantu ku muggalo guno. Era nga minisita avunaanyizibwa ku nsonga z'abavubuka, nvuddeyo nange okuyimusa eddoboozi eri abantu bange. Ng'abavubuka tukola ebitundu ebisinga obunene mu ggwanga Uganda. Abavubuka abangi baali bakola emirimu nga okuvuga bodaboda, okuba nga baali bavuga taxi, abamu baali bakola mu masaaluuni. Gino emirimu gyonna gyasibwa eggwanga kasita lyagenda mu mugalo. Mu kyo naffe tusanga obuzibu okuba nga twetuusaako obuvunaanyizibwa bwaffe ng'abantu, obw'abakadde baffe n'ab'enganda baffe bwe twali tulinako obuvunaanyizibwa. Omuggalo guno eno oba obuyambi buno buleeteddwa mu muggalo guno bugenda kugenda eri abantu bokka bokka abalina endagamuntu oba national IDs. Naye ate otunuulira ebitabo, abavubuka abasinga tebanneewandiisa. Nga naye tutunuulira obutunuulizi obukadde 15 bulowoozebwa okuba nga bugenda mu masomero, obukadde 2 bwokka bwokka bwe bwawandiisibwa okuba ne national ID. Kitegeeza obukadde 13 kw'obwo obugenda ku masomero obw'abavubuka tebali kwabo abayinza okufuna oba balina omukisa okufuna obuyambi buno ng'ate nabo bakosebwa. Mu kyo tusaba gavumenti baveeyo n'engeri endala oba enkola egenda okutuusa obuyambi ku bannayuganda bonna mu bitundu byonna kubanga ffenna twakosebwa omuggalo. Mu ngeri emu tusaba Speaker Parliament abeere ng'ayita olutuula olw'amangu okulaba nga tuwummuza omusolo ogwaleeteddwa ku internet ogugenda ogutandise olunaku olwaleero, kubanga gwaleeteddwa naye ng'okusingira ddala gugenda kunyigiriza abavubuka. Abavubuka bano eno abali wansi w'emyaka 24 okudda waggulu bakyali mu myaka gyabwe oba ku mutendera gwabwe ogwakavubuka. Mu kyo basanga okusomoozebwa okuwangaala nga tebalina kye bakola. Emikutu gino egy'emitimbagano gibadde gibakuumirako bize ne baba nga balina bye bakola, nga babako research gwe basobola okwekolera n'okuba nga bongera okwogerezeganya ne bannaabwe, ng'ate wetwogera essaawa eno bagenda kuba nga balekeddwawo olw'emiwendo emingi egya internet. Mu kyo tubasuubiriza okuba nti bayinza okuddamu okuba nga beenyigira mu bikolwa ebirala okuli okumenya amateeka n'okukozesa ebiragalalagala. Mu kyo tusaba Sipiika ayise Parliament tudde mututuule tulabe nga tutaasa eggwanga Uganda ku nsonga ezo zigenda okuba nga zirungi. Mu kyo baagaliza mwenna obuwangaazi Mukama tuyise mu kirwadde kino Katonda n'ensi yaffe.
Yes. By name I'm Wanda Nkunjenji, MD Shadow East, and Shadow Minister Foreign Affairs. In addition to the many and various aspects as elaborated by our Information Minister, as a Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs, I want to add and inform Ugandans as well, put to task the government that the exorbitant charges being imposed at the airport are not only illegal, but is targeted at exploiting returning Ugandan nationals. Many of them are put in quarantine centers, and some of these hotels belong to government ministers. We don't know the criteria used to identify most of these hotels. And as well, the list of vulnerable persons have now increased to involve and include a number of Ugandan nationals living in the diaspora. For example, as we speak today, hundreds of Ugandans have been arrested and detained in prisons in UAE, United Arab Emirates, and Dubai to mention. Government and Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been silent. And actually we have received the reports that most of our diplomatic missions across the globe, they are either closed or staffs are not there. The lockdown was to affect locals and employees in Uganda. But even our embassy staff and diplomats have abandoned the embassies, leaving Ugandan nationals abroad without where to run. And many of them are isolated. And some of them who use over also to send support to a number of communities and villages in Uganda cannot send, meeting the criteria of past receipt of mobile money income. Can't be true because these people can no longer send. Thirdly, to mention, the Minister of Gender has recently come up with a list of suspended labor recruitment companies. I've received information that most of these labor recruitment companies were operating offices here and receiving offices in those other countries, especially the Gulf region, UAE and the neighboring countries. Now, it has come to our knowledge that the offices of these companies in Uganda are closed. Even the offices in those regions are closed, but these companies took a number of Ugandan citizens to work abroad. But what is more challenging, these companies are reported to have confiscated passports and travel documents of these Ugandans. Many of them are now perplexed and stranded in foreign countries, especially in UAE. They have no access to their passport and there is nowhere to run because the closure did not mention where do the affected individuals, especially Ugandan nationals, abroad and also within Uganda, where they could run to. Lastly, to mention, in terms of Uganda and the areas being identified as areas housing vulnerable Ugandans, they are missing some sensitive areas like Magere. You would understand that Magere, which is in Chadondo East, was closed long ago before even this COVID lockdown. People and traders were chased away from their shops. Magere, Lusanya, it is public knowledge that people in Lusanya have been housed in tents and feeding on support. To date, when you look at the list of vulnerable persons and areas to be catered for, I don't see Lusanya, I don't see Magere, I don't see Chadondo East. For us, we are inconvenienced even before this COVID lockdown. Ours was when they locked down during campaigns and electoral period, and they have never opened because it is like a military and war zone. we find it very important that Wakiso and Kasanga Town Council is included on the list. I thank you.
Members, I've heard your voices and we are mindful about the time. So now we want, I'm sorry, these are my bosses, but we want to shorten the time we have to spend here. And I want to request that now we hear from 2 more honorable ministers. We are going to have the Honorable Gilbert Olanya and Honorable Nyakato Asnas from Hoima City. I thank you. Then after that, because we're also aware that we haven't had questions from you members, then the other ministers will probably come in during the question time. So now let's first get a statement from Honorable Gilbert Olanya, and then afterwards a short one from Honorable Nyakato Asnas. Then after that we'll have your questions, and the other ministers will get opportunity
bakikozesezza okutulugunya bannayuganda bokka ate nga balamuzi bayisibwa bulungi babajjako emitwalo 25 batestinga ate bwe bamusangamu okuba n'akawuka ne babatwala mu quarantine centers. Hoteeri ezo tufunye information bakwata hoteeri z'abaminisita bwe bateeka bannayuganda babasaba ssente nnyingi, kyetulowooza nti kiri wabweru w'amateeka ate kiyigiriza bannayuganda ate nga kitiitiibya abagwira. Kyakubiri, kampani ministry ekwataganya amakampuni agatwala abantu ebweru bafulumya olukalala lw'amakampani ge bagadde. Amakampuni ago ge bagadde tufunye obujulizi gabadde ne offices muno mu Uganda nga n'ebweru bwe batwala omuntu alina wabbukira era nga balinayo offices, naye amakampani gano gaali gajja passport ku bannayuganda naddala abali ebweru. Kati abasinga tebalina biwandiiko biboogerako, tebamanyi wakuddukira, tebafiiriddwako. Twagala gavumenti okubayo bunnambiro okuba nti abantu bano bayambibwa era bafiibwa, kubanga pasipoti zaabwe zikyali mu mikono gy'ago amakampani agaggaliddwa ate nga zigaddewo ofiisi eri tebalina wakubasanga ne wano tewali wakubasanga. Kyakusatu, abantu abalowoleza ssente okuva amawanga g'ebweru naddala nga mu Gulf region, UAE, Dubai n'awalala nti tebakyasobola ate kuweereza mu Uganda era bw'okozesa data ya mobile money ofuna results nfu kuba tebakyasobola. Abawerera ddala 10 plus bannayuganda bakwatibwa mu ggwanga lya Dubai mu UAE kubanga bataddewo ebikwekweto ebikwata abaddugavu ne bakwata bannayuganda. Bannayuganda abali ebweru bategeeza nti embase zaffe bambasada baddukayo dda nabo bakomawo mu Uganda beebase, teri wantu basobola kutuukira era tebalina buyambi wadde anti bajja kwembase, ne bana batalina biwandiiko tebakyalina wakuddukira. Kati ne kiba nti twagala palamenti etuuzibwe bunnambiro kubanga Ministry ya Foreign Affairs yabivaako dda, teyambye bannayuganda abali ebweru ate n'abako abasangibwa mu transit. Gavumenti ya Uganda ne Ministry ya Foreign Affairs tevaangayo na travel guides kuyambako bano bantu abasinga batambuzibwa kampani z'ennyonyi ne babasola ku bisaawe nga bamanyidde ddala nti eri baggalawo naye nga tebakiranga, abasinga ne basigala nga bali stranded. So twesanze nti bannayuganda abakwatibwa beetaaga okufiibwako bateebwe batwalibwe mu makooti kuba basibiddwa kati weeks bagambye 2 tebadaleetebwa mu kooti mu UAE oba okuteebwa. Naye ate ne gavumenti tenavaayo, embasizi zigale teri buyambi, n'amakampani agaggalwa gageranya ebiwandiiko bya bannayuganda. Kyakusatu nga mbaliriza nti olisi y'ebitundu ebirina okufiibwako saawuliddeyo boogera ku Emagere oba Lusanja. Emagere baggalawo dda nga ne COVID lockdown tennajja, abaayiwayo abasirikale ne baggalawo amaduuka. Ne Lusanja mumanyi nti abantu bandi babeera mu tteeti, naye lisiti ya minisitule teriiko Kasanga Town Council, teriiko Magere, teriiko Lusanja. Eyo nfu bali abantu beetaavu, twagala bateekebweko. Mwebaleddwa.
Yeah, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gilbert Okolanya, the Member of Parliament representing the Lac South in Amoro District, and the Shadow Minister in charge of East Africa Community Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to emphasize some few points raised by my colleague. First and foremost, being the recall of Parliament. You realize currently the executives are coming out with their own program. They start implementing without the blessing of Parliament. Parliament is the only place whereby we discuss matters and pass resolutions for the betterment of this country. Currently, as I speak, we have many matters of national importance that must be discussed by Parliament. In the absence of Parliament, it means the country shall go astray and at a total mess. We emphasize and we demand that the Speaker of Parliament recall the parliamentary sitting immediately. The Minister stated clearly that by the 6th of this month, they will start giving out money to the population. Without the parliamentary blessing, without the parliamentary discussion, we would like to emphasize and ask the Minister to explain on the floor of Parliament the modalities, the criteria he has used to pick out those people. We wanted to ask the Minister to tell us why is he zeroed on only the municipalities and the cities across the board. Yet the COVID-19 is affecting everybody across the board. Why is that so? Therefore, we demand that before the 6th of this month, Parliament must be recalled. We should sit in Parliament. We discuss the issues. We discuss the policies that government plans to implement before the implementation starts. You know, currently, the executives, I think the way I look at it, the way we are moving on, I think this 11th Parliament, we may turn up to be the rubber stamp. Because anybody can decide, anybody can instruct the Speaker of Parliament by saying, please close Parliament for 2 weeks, close Parliament for 1 month. If we continue dancing to the tune, it is an indication that currently we are in the pocket of the executive. And currently, as a country, I look at it that we may have only 2 arms of government working in this country, only executive and the judiciary. Because Parliament is seen, we are now going towards entering the pocket of the executive. And this is very risky for the country. We don't want this Parliament to be a toothless dog. We don't want this Parliament to be a barking dog that does not bite. Let the Parliament be fair. Let the arms of government as Parliament be left alone, and we do our own thing for the betterment of this country. I call upon the speakers of this country, let us be straight and remind the parliamentary activity. Somebody cannot come from State House and instruct you to close the Parliament, and you close the Parliament without members of Parliament knowing exactly what they're supposed to do. Now, if executives are coming up with the resolutions that people be given 100,000 shillings, and they came out with their own selections, we would like to ask on the floor of Parliament, why is it the media, being one of the important arms of government, are left out from benefiting from these 100,000 shillings? Now media are left out. Why is that so? We would like the Minister to explain on the floor of Parliament. There are so many sectors that are left out. And we would like to ask the Minister, let the Minister be clear to us. If they continue zeroing onto municipalities and cities, if they are going to allow the borders who are in the village constituency, like mine Amoro, to start operating normally, if they are going to open up the taxi drivers, the saloon owners, the private school teachers who are in the villages to start operating normally, this COVID-19 is affecting everybody. And as a position in this government, We demand that everybody must be treated equally. We are all taxpayers. We all pay taxes for this country. And we cannot say only those who are in municipalities and cities are important in this country. Everyone should be treated equally. If the government does not have enough resources, let them come up with another modality to support the people who are suffering, but not only zeroing on a narrow area and on a very small places. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, more importantly, as opposition, we would like to sit and discuss matters on the floor of Parliament. The Speaker of Parliament should immediately arrange for the recall of Parliament. We sit, we iron out issues, members raise matters of national importance, and we put everything properly on the floor of table. Otherwise, I thank you so much. May the good Lord bless you, and I wish to see you again on the floor of Parliament when Parliament is recalled. I may speak in Acholi.
Sinas is my name. I'm the woman representative for Hoima City and the Saddle Minister for Minerals and Energy. And during this lockdown, there are people who have taken advantage of evicting people from the mineral-prone areas in the Bunyoro sub-region, in the Kasese district, and some areas of Karamoja. Here with me have a letter from State House being written to the Honorable Dr. Mary Goretti Kitutu, Minister of Energy, and signed by the President of this country, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, His Excellency, evicting people from the Sita mines. These are people who have stayed in these areas for more than 30 years. And in the land laws, they qualified to be the landowners of these areas. So I'm calling upon government, and also those ones who are moving in the name of State House, illegally evicting people this lockdown, to stop it, because it is illegal and it is not humane. Also putting in mind the economic situation that our people are in. This has been their income in earning ways, and so government should come out and stop those ones who are evicting people from the mineral-prone area. Secondly, I'm calling upon government to come out and negotiate with bank owners to stop banks from mortgaging people's properties, but also harassing their clients during this lockdown. Because if you have been, the person has been your client for more than 3 years, why would you mortgage his property because of 1-2 months he has failed to pay? So government should come out and intervene in that. I'm also calling upon government, just like the president did in the last lockdown, to talk to the landlords and also the banks. To talk to the landlords, to be patient with their clients during this lockdown, because as you well know, all business are down and our people are looking for what to eat. Omuluganda. Said Mcharo Mbaka wa Hoima City, Shadow Minister wa Minerals and Energy. Obudde buno bwa lockdown, waliwo abantu abakufudde mugisa kugobaganya abantu abali mu bitundu ebirimu ebyobugagga. Kunze wano ngine ebbaluwa eva mu State House nga bagiwandiikidde Minisita wa Minerals and Energy Honorable Dr. Mary Goret Kitutu ng'esayiningiddwa President nga egoba abantu bakisiita abali mu mining areas ezo. Abantu bano babadde mu ttaka eryo for more than myaka 23. Ekyo bwe tugenda mu mateeka g'ettaka mu Uganda, bano bannannyini b'amateeka gano. Ate abantu bagobaganyiza mu budde buno bwa lockdown nga gavumenti olina gy'obaterekedde obatwala tekibeera kya bwenkanya ate kibamu obukumpanya okuba abantu bano babadde babajja ekyokulya. Nyongera kubiriza gavumenti okuvaayo okwogeraganya ne banks zireme okutulugunya nnyo baklients baabwe, abantu baabwe, customers baabwe mu budde buno bw'omuggalo, kuba nabo babadde bakola mmere ya leero. Mukimanyi bulungi bizinesi zonna zijjadde, kati omuntu bw'omuteerako ku nkeeke n'atuuka okubeera ku lusiko ate nga n'ekyokulya takirina, ekibeera kya bwenkanya. Nkubiriza ne gavumenti okuvaayo okwogera n'abalandlords bayambe baleme okutulugunya nnyo ba tenancy baabwe mu budde buno bw'omuggalo. Nga buli president lockdown yasooka kyeyakola nayogera ne banks wamu na balandlords okuweereza grace period ku ba tenants n'aba clients b'amabanks. Nsaba Katonda tuyise mu kino ekibeera kya COVID-19 nga ffenna tuli balamu.
Okay, thank you so much, Honorable Ministers. At this moment, we are going to get a few questions from you members, and as an outgoing journalist, I also try to ask something because. Well, let's have the first question from you.
Yes, Honourable Members, we understand the rules of procedure provide how to recall Parliament. Why are you not willing to take on this task to solicit signatures to recall Parliament formally? And two, do you think your prayers are going to delay this new aid? Yet families are on the verge of starvation in these municipalities and cities which have been highlighted.
Yes.
My question goes to the Minister, Shadow Minister for Internal Affairs.